just come out of the heart or does it? Oh, it's that?
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Oh, okay.
This is the one vessel, right? And what happens inside that vessel? No, what happens inside that vessel?
The septum.
What?
I did say that.
What?
The septum?
Septum is growing inside that vessel.
Okay.
And when the septum grows inside that vessel, what is it doing as it's growing? Twisting. And so what happens is, how many vessels do you see coming out of the heart right there? How many vessels do you see coming out of the heart right there?
2.
Because what happened?
The septum.
Septum grew. So here's one vessel like this. And when you create a septum, you do this. Now how many vessels do I have? You separate it into 2 vessels. But it's not like this. It doesn't grow like this. It grows twisting so that look at the vessels do this. And they twist around each other. So that you get a twisting like this. So that's how you get 2 vessels, pulmonary trunk and aorta. Yeah?
So if we didn't have the septum growing in the ventral aorta, would the pulmonary trunk like just be going straight with the ventral aorta?
Well, actually, yes. Like when you don't, when it looks like just like that, like the embryo version, just like that, there's no septum. There's just one vessel coming straight out of the heart. And that's a primitive version. That's what the way it's like in fish. Is they don't have a pulmonary trunk. There's no such thing as a pulmonary trunk in a fish. Amphibians have a little bit of a separation. Reptiles have a little bit of a separation where you're now separating the vessel part of it, but the heart is not completely separated. Okay? But with us, we separate our heart into right and left. We separate the vessels into pulmonary trunk associated with right, aorta associated with the left. No? Yes?
Yes.
No? Okay. So with this, right, you now see there's a pulmonary trunk coming out, but remember, okay, when you look at this right here, okay, this is what will kind of help to contribute to the pulmonary trunk portion right here. This is going to separate and it's going to become both pulmonary trunk and aorta. It becomes both of those things, pulmonary trunk and aorta. And these 6 arches are going to kind of move down a little bit. See, so they've kind of moved down a little bit. And what we're going to see is this piece right here is what will become that right there. So see pulmonary artery which goes to the lung, pulmonary artery which goes to the lung. Pulmonary artery which goes to the lung, pulmonary artery which goes to the lung. But this pulmonary artery, both of these pulmonary arteries were originally coming off of this, which was going to separate and become pulmonary trunk and aorta. But what you see on the left side is even after the pulmonary artery has come and gone down to the lung, what do you see right there? There's still a connection, and that's what this is right here. There's still a connection right there. So even though this kind of got dragged down, it's still making a connection like that. Do you see the same thing on the right side? Nope, don't have that same thing on the right side. So what this is doing is taking this and over here, where it normally would have hooked, well here, we'll just keep it in line with 6, where it normally would have hooked across like this, now it's not hooking on anything, there's nothing there. But on this side, where it hooks around, there's still something there for it to hook around. Now, because this is the fetal version, we're actually going to start referring to these by their proper names. Okay? Because no more arches in a fetus. A fetus doesn't have arches. A fetus has actual vessels. Right? A fetus is essentially a tiny human being. It doesn't look like an alien creature. It looks like a human with a huge head. That's what it looks like. Okay? So with this, now, even though this still looks very similar to this, we don't have aortic arches anymore. Now we have the actual names. So with this, right? What's this right here? Okay. What's this? Okay. I have to highlight this. It's going to get shorter and shorter as we go, but just so that you can kind of pay attention to this. What is that? That's the aorta. It's the whole time. That's the whole thing is aorta. Okay? So it's aorta, 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 aorta. Right? It's all aorta. Now, there's your aorta, so what's this part right there? That's the arch. That's the arch of the aorta. Like I said, eventually it will get shorter and shorter and shorter, but for now, here's the arch of the aorta, so we're not worrying about coronary arteries down here. What's this?
The brachiocephalic.
Because what's the first branch off the arch of the aorta?
Brachiocephalic.
Brachiocephalic. So here's branch number 1 right there. And that is brachiocephalic trunk. Now, if that's your brachiocephalic trunk, what does your brachiocephalic trunk branch into? Right subclavian and right common carotid. So when you look at this, originally what was this? Seventh intersegmental. And what did we say the seventh intersegmental will eventually end up supplying? The arm. So if this is not an embryo anymore, and now we're giving it the proper names, then what's the name of the vessel that supplies the arm?
The right subclavian.
Subclavian. So this is so it's that. And here's right what's still contributing to it, and here's what's also contributing to it. All of that is giving you the subclavian. Now, in reality, in a real human being that's formed into a fetus, this is the longest part of it. This stuff just gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. Okay? Does that make sense? And so as that gets shorter, your subclavian gets closer and closer and closer to really just coming off right there. But originally, yeah, the fourth arch here, the dorsal aorta here, were contributing to the formation of the subclavian. And so now, because this is a fetus, because we're calling this entire thing the subclavian, can you say that the right recurrent laryngeal hooks around the fourth arch? No, because there is no fourth arch. Like if I said right here, is this ectoderm? What is it? It's epithelium, right? Now, what did it come from? It came from ectoderm, but this is no longer ectoderm. Ectoderm is a very particular thing, but once you differentiate, now you can't call it that anymore. So, was this a fourth aortic arch?
Yes.
But by the time you get over here, it's no longer a fourth aortic arch. Does that make sense? So that's the idea. So fetus and the adult are very similar. There's a critical difference, but one, we'll do that in a second. So when we look at this, what was this thing? And it's hooking around what? Which one? Right subclavian. Okay, now, that was the right subclavian, so what's this thing right here? Okay, common carotid artery. What does common carotid artery become? What does it split into?
The external and internal.
External and internal. So, which one, right, when we look over here, ventral aorta, dorsal aorta, which one will become the external carotid?
Ventral aorta.
Ventral, so this is now external carotids.
Now, in that other picture, you kind of drew them like going around the head in the adult. Do they go around the brain, or do they go like?
Outside, they stay on the outside.
So they go out.
They stay on the outside, yeah.
Just come.
They don't go into the skull.
Into your face.
So they'll supply your mandible, they'll supply your maxilla, right? They'll do all this stuff outside, yeah? So then what's this right here?
Internal.
Or
maxillary.
That's a maxillary. Oh, and then what's this? Now say it.
Internal.
Internal carotids.
I guess just the,
Office hours? We're done at noon. So. Okay. Oops, I'm putting an arrow. All right. So when you look at the first branch off of the arch of the aorta, what is it? Brachiocephalic trunk. And brachiocephalic trunk should then branch into what? Right subclavian and right common carotid. And isn't that what that's doing? So like I said, this is really the fetal version with the proper names now, okay? The only difference is in a real true life fetus, these would be shorter than they actually are. And that's what I'm going to show you in the last version when I show you the adult version. Now, okay, what's the second branch? See that right there? That's the second branch off the arch of the aorta. So what's the second branch off the arch of the aorta? Left common carotid. And isn't that what this is?
No.
And then what does the left common carotid split into?
The internal and external.
Internal and external carotids. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What's the third branch off the arch of the aorta?
The left subclavian.
Left subclavian. So we follow the arch of the aorta all the way down here because this is where it originally was. But again, I keep telling you, in a real life fetus, this wouldn't be all the way down here. It would already be kind of like shortening, and it would be up here. But here's the transition. So this is the third branch, and this is the left subclavian artery.
for the Duchess arteriosus, that technically wouldn't be considered a branch because it's going to the aorta and it's not really a branch off of it.